Hello there, my name's D. Campbell again. Welcome to another one of my videos. This will be another quick video on demand training about with guidelines. We're just going to quickly fly through with guidelines and some of the key diagnostic codes that you're going to be dealing with guidelines. But we're not going to go into depth on the conditions themselves. Please watch the actual videos about them, like for example, there'll be a diabetes video and such. With guidelines are this very long guideline here that you'll find in the ICD-10 book. And I wanted to point out some of the key lines of it that I've made more or less a table from it here. Providers are very good at knowing that with means associated with and due to. But the main one that is missed all the time is these conditions should also be coded as related even in the absence of explicit documentation linking them together. What that means is even if there's an unknown linkage between two conditions that have a with explicitly written in the code itself, they will be combined together because it is expected for their two relationships to be combined. The only time that we can separate any with codes is if there's clear documentation that states explicitly that these conditions are unrelated to each other. And that's what we're going to go through with this. It's just some of the main conditions that we will find where it has a with guidelines in it. So just remember, it's not just associated with, it's not just due to, but it's also a presumed casual relationship. So whenever there's a presumed casual relationship with these codes, these linkage codes exist. So one of the main ones that you'll find is hypertension. This is kind of a busy slide. I'll break it down more on future videos, but the main ones that I want to point out here is that hypertension has with for hypertension with heart failure. It's the heart failure codes, and then the without heart failures where it's other heart conditions. And then we have chronic kidney disease as a with guideline too with hypertension. So basically, if you ever have a patient with any of these I-50 codes or any of these CKD codes, you must report hypertension with one of these combination codes that best fit your patient. So if they only have hypertension and CKD, use the hypertensive with chronic kidney disease. If they have both chronic heart failure and chronic kidney disease, then you will use one of these combination codes instead. So just follow the hierarchy from how you code it and just make certain you always follow the with. Just remember, it's a casual presumed relationship as well. I have the with guidelines down here below. Diabetes type 2 and all diabetes codes for that matter have this same with hierarchy here. So all of these with conditions exist with diabetes as well. So for example, you'll find all your polyneuropathy codes under the neurological family. Other specified is where you'll find like hyperglycemia and other more specified ones. That's where you'll find your skin conditions too, like diabetic ulcers. Here's another way to view it where it's broken down by each of the families. Basically, diabetes starts out with 3 characters for the type. Then the next 4 characters are what kind of with is happening. Their with is without complications. So basically how diabetes coding works is if a patient doesn't have any of these complications, then and only then can we use a diabetes without complication. But let's try to build it for, let's say, the polyneuropathy, a common one for a type 2 diabetic. I would take my E11 code, I would take the 5 for my 4th character, and I'd take the 2 for the polyneuropathy. And that's it. It's as simple as that. That's how you do the coding for it. If you have a type 2 with foot ulcers, then you'd have to go into the other specified, go into the other specified with skin condition, and there is where you'll find a foot ulcer. If a patient has an ulcer at another location on their body, and it's more than likely from the diabetes, or the provider doesn't explicitly state it, you can assume that that skin ulcer is from the diabetes as well. So you will use with other skin ulcer if it's an ulcer at any other location on a diabetic patient, unless the provider explicitly states each and every time that they know that that ulcer isn't related to their diabetes. Drug codes also have a lot of width. I just have this for opioids, but it works for every single one of the drug codes. You'll find the same family of it, where we have all these width. The major widths that I want to talk about are the with psychotics and then the with other. So let's say you have an alcoholic patient coming in who's complaining about erectile dysfunction. It is easy to assume through a casual relationship that erectile dysfunction is caused by their alcohol consumption. Since alcohol consumption will decrease testosterone level, it is likely to assume that their erectile dysfunction is due to their substance use disorder. So that'd be another with guideline. So just remember that's how with works unless you explicitly state otherwise each and every time. Pathological fractures are also a with guideline. We have the M80s are osteoporosis with a current pathological fracture. Whenever a patient has a fracture, we must use the M80 with the current location type. You will not use an S or T code because the S and T code fractures are considered traumatic injuries. Instead, we must use this M80 family of the osteoporosis with current pathological fracture. And as the guidelines state, even if it's from a fall, we will assume it is from the osteoporosis. So that is how you will code it. They have the width as well. And finally, we have F84, which is with other pathological fracture. Same kind of guidelines, just follow the coding for it. Providers highly recommend you clearly document the other pathological fractures because coders have clear guidelines on osteoporosis, so it's easy for us to work with that one. A lot of us coders are honestly not aware of all the other pathological causes. So just make certain you clearly document it so then we can use it accordingly. There is also the neoplastic disease family. Those ones are obviously pretty easy for us to work with because we'll know it's pretty clear, but these not otherwise specified are going to be hard for a coder to work with. So as a provider, please clearly document in your notes. And finally, I have some examples of how this will work. We have a patient who comes in with type 2 diabetes and CKD stage 3A. We will code it as diabetes with CKD and then also code the CKD level. Patient with alcoholic dependency and insomnia comes in. We would code that as alcohol dependency with sleep disorder. Patient with hypertension, CKD stage 4, and chronic heart failure will be coded as the combination codes as follows. Patient with osteoporosis presents after a fall, fracturing right hip. We will use osteoporosis with current pathological fracture. Patient with opioid abuse, I explained that scenario. The main one we want to discuss is the code separately. What's going to happen is if you ever report an I-10 code, a primary hypertension, just a regular hypertension code, with CKD, let's say, insurance will deny that because there's the clear guidelines that these codes have to be combined together. However, we can appeal it by sending in the records. As long as we send in the records and clearly state that it shows that these two conditions are unrelated, then and only then can we code them separately. So that's why the guidelines are clear that you must document it explicitly each and every time. So let's say you have a patient come in with uncomplicated type 1 diabetes and bilateral lower extremity neuropathy after a car accident. Since we clearly documented that we know the neuropathy is from something else, then and only then can we code the two separate. Patient with stage 4 CKD and secondary renal vascular hypertension, now we can code them separately. But as you can see, we're still not even using an I-10. Instead, we're going to be using a secondary hypertension code. Patient with end-stage CKD due to alcohol dependency, diabetes induced by CKD. Now we can get around that with guidelines where we'll use the diabetes due to underlying condition. Actually, never mind, sorry, scratch that. We will still use a combination for it. And honestly, that's kind of about it. So basically, you have to clearly document it each and every single time why you don't want the codes together. Otherwise, they will be combined. So just make certain you're aware of these guidelines, otherwise you will end up with quite a few denials. Otherwise, that's it. That's with guidelines for you in a nutshell. So just remember, with guidelines, assume a casual relationship and unknown linkage, unless each and every document clearly states that they aren't related. And that's it. That's with guidelines. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Bye now.